Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives, thinkers, and doers. It is I, the mayor, little boys, high upside the mayor's office, hanging with people who are doing incredible things. And on today, we have ourselves a memoir that really drills into the devastating nature of Alzheimer's disease. We're going to talk about that in a bit later, but I got to welcome my guest today. Please welcome Patricia Michaud, the author of The Love of My Life, a family's true story of a father and husband's battle with Alzheimer's. How are you doing on this lovely afternoon?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. It's been a cloudy day today after 3 days of hot weather.
Yeah, it is a dog days of summer. Hopefully, you're keeping cool wherever you are today.
Yeah, the house is closed up, the air condition is on, and I'm
Yeah.
happy.
So I gotta ask, as just an author, just before we get into the brass tacks of your book, the author life is kind of unique. You're now in the club. You make sure that everyone hits you up with questions, comments, concerns. What's the one thing that you realized that once you put your story to paper that you didn't realize when you started out?
That how many people would ask me questions. Uh, Neighbors have found out that I wrote a book, and they ask about their loved ones and what could they do to help them along the way and what to expect.
Yeah. That's always an interesting endeavor. So let's get right down to the brass tacks. I am learning about the nature of Alzheimer's disease, and the more I've learned, the more I'm just taking aback at how it can really affect a person. So I understand it's a difficult subject, but let's talk about it right then and there. What was your direct experience with such a crippling disease?
Not a thing. Didn't even know the word. Uh, my husband, excuse me, my husband was a genius. He was a ham radio operator since he was 16. He was in the Navy and he was a radioman, um, smart computer analyst. And all of a sudden, things started to change. He wouldn't remember things. He couldn't remember colors. You'd ask him a question and he'd get mad because you things he told him long a time ago about it. And then to find out about it, I had no clue what the word was. I didn't know what dementia, didn't know any of those things. And to be just 52 and my husband was 56, one of the youngest ones at the time, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah. When you get married to someone, they always say for sickness and health, rich and poor, but you never really like have an idea what that looks like. And so, day to day, as the decline was happening, what were you going through? Was it kind of like a sense of helplessness? Was it frustration? Like, what were the emotions that were going through your mind as you were trying to caretake? If it's just like a better
Well,
term.
I was working and trying to take care of my husband, and he was working at the time, and my girls were in their early 20s and trying to juggle doctor's appointments and all these things and trying to read books on what was going on and things happening with the family and people saying they can't see it, they don't know it, you're I'm making it up.
Yeah.
I had people say, well, if it's so bad, why don't you divorce him?
Mm.
And I'd tell them I married him for better or for worse, sickness and health. I know Joe would say, this is my wife, I will take care of her. And
Yeah.
I did the best I can for 8 years. I quit my job and stayed home with him and tried to come up with ideas to keep him active and go to the counseling, go to his doctor's appointment, and do everything I possibly could. And I have a core group of friends that they would let me come over and scream and have a drink.
Right. Yeah, well, that was my next question. As a woman, you have certain needs, psychological, social needs. Like, how would you able to balance that for yourself to refill your cup and caretake at the same time?
It was hard because when I did go to my neighbors or to a bar or a restaurant to have dinner and a drink, your mind is like, should I get home? Is he going to be all right? Who's with them?
Hmm.
It falls on you because you are the primer person to him and everything. And so you don't get any rest.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking though, because you did mention that someone probably gave you that offhand comment, ah man, just walk away from the marriage, and you're like, no, that there's a commitment there. But we're all human though. I mean, there's
Oh,
some days
you're
we
all
just kind of
human.
where there's some days where you miss maybe frustrated so to the point where you have to go out on your own, or maybe you go, can I even do this day to day? Like there has to be some times you have to pull yourself back from the brink. Like what kept you even in the darkest times committed to helping your husband out?
Because I loved him so much.
Yeah.
He was my best friend. He was the father of my kids. And my Joe and I and my girls knew that whenever we were together, we held hands. In stores, we would play incoming and you'd throw something over the counter. Or in the car, we would play fight and get stopped by the police because they thought we were having a problem. No, he was my one and only. And yeah,
Yeah.
it was my job, nobody else's. That was my husband.
In your opinion, what does it mean to have a soulmate for those of us who are maybe still looking for theirs?
A soulmate is someone that you would die for. And I would have died for Joe if it could have been me. A soulmate is where you feel so comfortable that you could say something so off the wall and he would accept it or laugh at it. Joe would always say I'd give him whiplash because we'd be doing one thing, but something would pop into my head and I would throw it back and he'd be like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
And that is a soulmate. Joe never had a violent temper, ever. We would fight, but like when my mom first met Joe and they went out in the backyard and talked, she came back in and she goes, either he's a damn good salesman or a damn good liar. And that was Joe. He would drink until his nose went numb. He had everything. When the girls were in trouble, and even me, he would start to lecture you about something. You don't interrupt him because once you interrupt him, the lecture would go on longer. Um, he was just, people would gather around him. He was just that type of a person. And that is a soulmate, someone that you can look to for loyalty and trust and everything.
Yeah. And luckily enough that you had the opportunity to marry your soulmate, so people
Mm-hmm.
don't have that chance to do it. When you decided to sit down and to make this book a reality, was it a lightning in a bottle moment, like I got to put pen to paper, or was it a thing where someone said, "Hey, look, your story is inspiring, and maybe you should try it out"? Were you coaxed into doing it? Was it something that was on your own? What was going through your mind?
It was on my own. Joe, I cared for Joe for 8 years. He was in a care facility for 3. And when I put him in there, it was hard, hard. And I told him I would be there every single day. And I was, unless something came up and I couldn't be there. But I always tried to be there at lunchtime and talk to all the other people in the things. He was in like cottages where they were more elite and they could get up and get dressed and maybe go out to lunch and stuff like that. And then things happened where they would move them into other cottages for the really bad ones.
Hmm.
But Joe, when he went in there, he couldn't talk. He was having problems speaking and getting words out. And so I told him I would be there. So every day after I would get home, I would write down a page, paragraph or two of how I was feeling, how he was doing, what was going on in the care facility. And after 3 years and watching him die for 3 days, it was a book.
Hmm.
And I had a friend read it, and she cried and cried. And she said, you got to do something about this. And
Yeah.
so I submitted it, and this is what I got.
We're going to take
Because
a look at
I'm
that
sorry.
now. The Love of My Life, a family true story of a father and husband's battle with Alzheimer's. Check out the sneak peek. So I have to ask, probably a selfish question. What was like the best thing to bring to lunch?
It's
What was
for
it?
lunch.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They had the best grasshopper pie. They had enchiladas, baked potatoes. I mean, they had the best food. My grandkids, they were young at the time, so they would come with me for lunch, and I'd have to read the menu, and they'd pick them all out. What's going on? What are we having? And then that would be they'll go visit Grandpa that day because they knew they were going to be fed good food.
Right. A lot of us have heard the word before: Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and the like. And I think some of us have a working definition of what that is. But from your perspective and what you've come across, what are some things we get wrong about the disease and how it affects families or the individual, do you think?
Well, the thing is some people think that it is such a degrading disease that they don't want to be seen around it, or
Hmm.
they can't even cope with it among themselves. And it's not a disease that they are asking for. It's a disease that is now spreading wide. I have a brother who is 73 and he's just got dementia now.
Hmm.
And he's working as hard as he can. So we're just doing the family thing to keep him going. But you've got to know that they haven't truly lost themselves. It's in there. You just have to kind of coax it out of them.
Yeah. Semi personal question. When Joe was aware of his decline, did he try to put like little nuggets of information for future generations? Did he try to do anything else to preserve motor skills? Like, really, was it a daily battle? What was going through his mind?
At the beginning, and what I did was I made a picture board of him mowing, doing laundry, going to certain stores. That way you could say, hey, let's do this, and coax him and say, show him a picture or show him what it was, and hopefully he would pick it up. And that was the best way. It was the same thing with his friends and family. I took pictures of everybody and wrote little name tags down below and and we'd go through the pictures and I'd ask him, well, do you know who this is? And if he could, I'd say yay. And if he couldn't, then I'd tell him who it was.
Hmm.
Find out what music they love to listen to. Joe was a Barbara Streisand person. So we listened